Hey everybody, Jason here. I hope you're all doing really good. I have here in front of me a brand spanking new iPhone X PCB. Okay, maybe it's not brand spanking new. I have in front of me an iCloud locked iPhone X PCB. This is a board that I ordered because I needed some parts off of it, but I thought this one would give me a good opportunity to show you all how it is that I take this little rascal apart. So let me show you what it is that I do to these things. We are going to take a standard issue styrofoam plate and place the PCB directly in the center. Now, we're going to put the plate in the center of the microwave, being certain to keep the board directly in the center. Set the cook time to 99 minutes, and then press start. Haha! Did I get you? I'm not really microwaving any boards. Let me show you what I've really been doing with these. For the most part, I have been using this. This is a board preheater that was donated to me, and I pretty well set the temperature all the way up on this thing max, which it says 300. I'm not sure where it's calibrated at. And then I lay the PCB on here. There's just a certain way here where I can get it to sit pretty good. Yeah, right here. This is what I have been using. Shit. Now today I have a new tool. I have in front of me this. It says, if you can read Chinese, this is what it says. What the hell is this thing? This is a board preheater that is pretty well made exactly for this board. Let me show you what it is that I mean here. Okay, so here's what this thing looks like. Now I did finally rotate that camera, so as you'll see, everything is upright in front of me and it's upright in front of you. I'm sure that has been thoroughly annoying for the last 129 videos. I believe what we've got here is we have a board holder that is actually made to fit this PCB. So I think if we were to align this on here just right, ooh, nice and pretty. This will sit right on those pegs, and it sits right down there in its slot. And it actually has these arms that fold around and hold only the bottom of the PCB. That is so cool, guys. Gosh, let me read the note. Hello, this is Martin from Easy Fix Cell Phone Repair. We are very a big fan of your work, and definitely your videos have made our work a lot more easier. We appreciate everything you do. Thank you, and keep up the good work. We started a YouTube channel thanks to you. I hope you like the tool that we send to you, and I hope that it'll help you. Thank you, Martin with Easy Fix Cell Phone Repair. I cannot tell you how thankful I am. This is not something that I was expecting. I just went and checked my mail, and I had this thing in my mailbox, and I've been doing more and more work on the iPhone X, so having more tools that are specifically made for the job is like totally sweet. Now let's see how it works. So here's the platform. It also came with the power cord here, so let's go ahead and get that unbundled. There we are. Oh cool, so it's a power cord, it's switch. It looks like we're actually going to be feeding 120 volts directly into this thing. This ought to be fun. All right, so we're going to hook this up here. Now, before we start warming this thing up, let's go ahead and test this PCB and see if it works. I bought it on eBay, and it's supposed to be an iCloud lock board. So let's hook it up, test it, see if it works, and then we're going to rip it apart. So we've got our screen hooked up. We've got it hooked up to the power supply. We are going to prompt this thing to boot in 1, 2, 3. Apple logo. Yay, Apple logo. Woo! Yay, Apple logo! Our work is done! All right, boot it up. What? Whoa, wait, this is supposed to be iCloud locked. Oh, you know what? This is going to have somebody else's stuff on it, and it just hasn't been wiped. Find my iPhone is on. All right, guys, so we got ourselves a good test board. I am a little concerned that the phone unlocks without a passcode and is iCloud locked. Anyways, let's try out our new heater and let's see if we can take this board apart. So first, I'm going to take the sticker off the top around these connectors because it's going to get all crinkled up and gummy and nasty and it'll be hard to plug stuff in. So what we'll do is just take and sort of wet the sticker down with some alcohol here. Wet this one down too. There we go. We've got those thoroughly moist. Now, let's go ahead and start removing it. I like the iPhone X stickers. They always come off really clean, and you can actually put them back on. So yeah, the whole the whole shebang, all in one strip. All right. Take this other one off here. You'll notice that Apple uses barely any solder between these board halves. I think that they use so very little solder that even if you melt it and squeeze it, it won't have enough there to actually create any bridges. Now, one thing that I can say about the alloy that Apple has used on these is that, is this underfilled? Is that it melts really, really, really low. Let's say, for instance, you think that you're going to remove this shield. Like, say you're going to take this shield off the top of the board. If you start trying to heat this up and take this shield off, what you'll find out is that the alloy between these two board halves, it melts extremely easy. I'm pretty sure you could take this board apart with a hairdryer if you wanted to. Now, initially, I was doing these with hot air, and I think with hot air, you get a little bit more of a board warpage, and then up here toward the end of this, you'll wind up in a situation where it's kind of apart. Now, guys, I'm really concerned about this one because it looks like it's freaking underfilled. It's got to be flux. If this is underfill, I might just puke all over the workbench. Let's put this thing back in the holder here and start heating it up. So this will go in here just like this with the sim tray side of this hanging off of there. This is going to flip over and hold that end of the PCB, and this one is going to flip over and it is going to hold this side of the PCB. Now we're going to go ahead and flip the power switch on this thing and turn it on. Ooh, we got a light. Okay, now I've got you down as close as I can get to this thing. I'm going to start feeling it with my fingers. Now I can tell you right away that this doesn't feel like it's heating up near as fast as the other preheater that I showed you first. What we're going to do here is I'm going to continue feeling this board. Oh yeah, now it's starting to come up to temp. And the way I do these is we start feeling for anything to move. This stuff melts really easy, and I don't think you'll tear anything up by pushing down on it. Not unless it's got like really big balls, and they normally don't have that big of balls. Oop, I almost forgot to cut our sticker. That would have been a pain in the neck. Step one, cut this sticker. There we go. This thing should be up to temp any minute, guys. Let's see if we're getting any play yet. Man, did they underfill it? Is this one underfilled? These things normally start coming apart like really, really quick. They will surprise you at how fast they come apart if you think you're going to use hot air on the top side. All right, we're getting a little bit of play. See a movement? So we're just about up to temp. I don't think you want to use any hot air taking these apart, guys. So as you can see here, we're starting to get this little bit of play. See that? You can see that I think that is flux. It's starting to squish out from between, and the boards are moving independent of each other. Now this is a really weird angle. I'm not used to doing this in front of a camera. I think we're up to temp to where we can pull these apart. Now what we're going to do, nope, not quite. It's still stuck down on this side. All right, so let's give this just a little bit longer. Now, as you can see, we're doing this without the use of hot air. We're letting the preheater do all the work here. I don't know exactly what temperature this is, but it's not that hot. It melts way before anything else. Okay, so this is just about to come apart here all the way across. Now we want to try to lift this up as smoothly as possible and flip it right upside down. We want to try not to smush out any of its balls. And there you have it. Nice separation. Now I'm going to go ahead and turn the heater off. On these, what I really like to try to do is if you can get a clean enough separation to where none of the alloy that Apple has on here gets intermixed, none of it gets flattened out, smushed, screwed with, then you actually have a pretty perfect alloy here and pretty perfect proportions on all of the pads just to put it right back together. Okay, so let's go ahead and get this out of the board heater now. Ow, sure is hot. Well, gosh, guys, I gotta say, This thing works really good. Now, one thing I'll say when it comes to putting them back together, this has guide pins. I've been putting them back together on this. This don't have no guide pins. So I think this is going to work a whole heck of a lot better. Let's get this under the microscope and see how I did on the separation. Let's look at the solder pads. Let's make sure we didn't lose any pads. Let's make sure I didn't screw it all up. So it looks like I did do a fairly crappy job at taking this apart. Let's go ahead and clean this up. This other board holder that I use, this thing is really handy. We've got a little notch that this will just sit right down in. Let's see what we can do about cleaning this up. First, let's see. Let's add a little bit of flux to this. There we go. This alloy that I'm putting on here, this is a low melt alloy. It might actually be a little bit too low, but the stuff that Apple has on here, it is a really low melting alloy. So what I'm doing right now is I'm basically just giving us a decent hump grit array here. I'm going to go around this and I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to add little bits of flux to this and I'm going to clean up each individual pad and I'm going to leave us a bit of a hump. Because as you notice, if you look in the solder that Apple has on here everywhere else, there's not hardly any there. Like, they used barely any solder, guys. So I think with what I'm humping onto this board, it's actually probably a little bit more than what they used. Okay. So I guess I should probably try to get this stuff as like a rosin core so I could do this with a wire solder. Right now what I'm doing is I'm dipping the tip of my micro pencil into the solder paste that I have here, and I'm using that to drag it over these pads. What I really like is whenever I do a good enough job taking them apart, that I don't have to deal with the pads. That is handy. I think this time I maybe didn't have it quite hot enough whenever I pulled the two parts apart. Okay, so we're just going to keep zinging right on around here. Being very careful not to blob any of this low melt alloy anywhere else on the PCB. I would have never used low melt on anything before, guys, but what are you going to do? Pretty sure you'd toast anything if you try to use any normal, respectable solder alloy. Okay. So as you can see, we're getting a pretty even hump grit array here. Plenty of flux. All right, let's go ahead and continue around the outside here. Now, everything that I'm soldering here, those are all ground pads, so you can imagine how low this alloy must have to melt. Now, this isn't the low alloy. There is an alloy that you can buy that's, I think it's like, it melts at like 138 degrees Fahrenheit. The stuff gets soft just from your body heat. This isn't that stuff. This melts a little bit higher. It's still not, I still wouldn't want to use this stuff for like soldering connectors and stuff onto the board. Yet, this is what I've come to use. Now, I don't know exactly what it is that Apple has on the board, but I know it melts low. The first time I had experience with it, I was just trying to remove a shield from the top of the board, and I did not want to float the two halves, and guess what I did? I floated the two halves. Total accident. I have a feeling, well, I can't say I have a feeling. I know there's a lot of people getting surprised by that. I've had some boards show up here secondhand from other shops, and you could tell they had not intended on floating those two halves. They were just like try to heat up a connector for who knows what. Oh, need some more flux. Are we halfway done yet? For crying out loud, this is taking forever. Where'd I start? Okay, we're about halfway done. I'll probably cut out most of this where I go around all these balls because it's just so time consuming. Okay. And I really am just eyeballing this, guys. Get it? Balling? Alright. There we go. What I'm going to do here, I'm going to finish fixing all these balls. We're going to put, like I'm doing here, I'm just adding the tiniest little bit of alloy to these pads, and I'm making sure everything's nice and smooth and nice and even. And we're going to put it into my eye socket, and we're going to test it and see if it still works. And if it does still work, we are going to put the two halves back together, and then we're going to test it again. We'll call this the easy way. The easy and crude way. I am sure there is people that are beating themselves to death trying to use stencils for this and use like some mechanical way of making sure every ball is the same size. And I'm sure maybe one day I'll start doing that too if I find out this gives me a good reason not to. Apple don't use hardly any solder on this, guys. I mean, they have just got a tiny little bit on here. And like right now, I'm actually reusing their alloy. Like I'm just taking in their stuff's getting stuck onto my tip and I'm just using theirs. Now, basically to get these the same size, I'm letting nature do the work. Surface tension is pulling a rather even amount of solder from my tip and only a specific amount onto these pads. So this is actually, as you can see, this is starting to look really nice. And let's keep going. Wait, am I there? Ooh, no, okay, I'm almost there. Let's add some more flux. Now this is a lot of flux, guys. Probably what I'll wind up doing in the future is, if I don't find a more efficient way of cleaning this off, is I might actually ultrasonic clean these and then add a tiny bit of flux to put them back to use for soldering it back together. And as you'll see, before we solder this back together, I will add a little bit of flux. Okay, almost there. Yeah, this is the professional way. Just take your iron and just freaking blob it all over the place until everything looks good. And then that's the professional way. All right, almost there. I don't like how much solder is down here on these last pads. Oh, a little more flux, a little more solder. Oh. How is your balls? All right. Now, one thing that we got going for us here is that all of the outer perimeter balls, those are ground. So if you got something screwy with one of those, it's probably not going to cause you much trouble. Okay, this is all looking really good. Now I'm going to go around here and I'm going to clean my flux off of it. I'm actually going to try to do this with alcohol and a Q-tip at first. If that don't work, I'm going to go to ultrasonic because I don't want this crap inside my expensive jig for testing, the eye socket. I'm actually going to go ahead and result to ultrasonic cleaning on this. So I'm going to run this through the cleaner and then I'll be right back. So looking along these balls here, you'll see that I have done like an amazing job at getting everything the same size. Everything has a very, very dainty, like a nice little hump on it. I don't see anything that is off size. Now, while that dries, I'm going to go ahead, we're going to set that aside, and let's see, is my heater still warm? Yeah, let's just set this on this heater. Let's let this thing get some heat for a while, heat that sucker up. And then let's have a look at the bottom side. Let's start fluffing this up with a lower than leaded melting alloy. And we're going to try to keep it off the edge here. One of the first things I did was started getting solder all over this edge perimeter, and that's a pain in the neck. So I think I'm going to go with the iron from the inside out, like this. Now we don't want any huge burrs or anything sticking up. We just want nice, pretty domes across all of these. I'm probably going to experiment around with reballing and some other methods of doing this. I'm sure this is not the right way of doing it, but I'm also sure that there's not really a right way of doing it. This is probably the easiest way of doing it. I think it's best to move slow, that way you build up plenty of heat. I remember back in the early days of shield repair videos where nobody ever showed how to put the shields back on. It's going to be like the same exact thing with the iPhone 10. Nobody wants to show this crap. I am curious as to what everybody's doing with the heatsink goop that's in the middle. Now, if you use a small enough amount of solder on here, you can get away with actually using pressure to clamp these together as you melt it. I don't think you're going to create any bridges. Come on, mofo, let go. Ah! So I guess one could actually put thermal compound in there and then press the board together, as Apple has done. That would probably work. Okay, that's too much. That's what's wrong. Man, oh man, this sucks. iPhone 10 is probably going to weed out a lot of weak hands. People that don't really want to fix this stuff. I gotta say, I am still relieved to see the iPhone 10. When it comes to data recovery success rate, the success rate on this beast has been like way higher compared to that of an iPhone 7 or 7 Plus. The success rate on those was kind of sometimes it got to be a drag. Okay, nice even domes on all those. Wonder if this is going to work. It should work. We don't have anything that's radically the wrong size. We don't have way too much here. It's not going to be that easy to create solder bridges. I have been getting these in as prior repair attempts, and it's very common to see this reball process attempted and have solder bridges all over the place. And I think it's because of people trying to get... I'm making a sticky mess all over everything with all this flux. I think it's because of people trying to get big balls, like from a stencil, onto all these pads. I don't think that's going to be necessary. I believe everybody will wind up doing it their own way, though. Come on now. All right. It's looking pretty good. We've got some larger balls out here at the end, but that may not actually be a bad thing if this winds up being one that's warped. I think it's hot air that warps these, because right from the factory, they will come apart and go right back together. All right, so now we have got these. God, this is nasty. We've got pretty well even solder alloy all over all the pads, top and bottom. Now I'm going to take this nasty sticky mess that I just made. I'm going to go ahead and clean it off in the cleaner. All right, we are back with this thing. These top and bottom pieces have both been ultrasonic cleaned and dried. Since this board has not seen any sort of a physical injury, we're not going to do anything with the middle separation layer, the joining board. What do you call that thing? Anyways. So as you can see, my method did not do an absolute perfect job of getting the exact even amount of solder on each one of these pads, but it did do a fairly okay job. Let's have a look at the top board now. And it has a pretty, this one's a little big here, right here, but it has a pretty even amount of solder across most of these. They're not all perfect, but I would imagine if I was doing it with a stencil, they wouldn't all be perfect either. It's going to take me a while to get more practice and come up with other methods of doing this. And to be completely honest, I haven't watched anybody. I have not Googled a single other tech and watched how they've been putting these back together. So feel free to give me all your input, all your comments. What you're seeing here is the result of me by myself tinkering with the iPhone 10 PCB. So before we go any farther here, let's see if it still works. I mean, heck, I've heated it up, I've taken it apart. So let's go ahead and get out my eye socket right in the eye socket. I love this thing. It comes in this totally awesome packing. It is in like a pressurized, it's got like this membrane on top and on bottom. So when you close it, it actually sandwiches between those two layers and it stays suspended in the middle of this box. It's totally rad. Let me show you how to use this thing. So first we're going to take and separate the top layer off. This is our actual, this is what's going to make the connection between the two boards here. And one mistake that I made in the beginning was forgetting to, I didn't know to take this spacer off. So when I put the board in here, everything was too fat. And see, there's a spacer in there. I did not realize that was detachable. All right. And if you leave that in there, you'll wind up in a situation where you can push all you want on this and it won't clip together. It's just, everything's too big. So, also has nice little pegs to line it up. There's our bottom section. Now we're going to put our middle joining thingy here that's got like spring-loaded pins all the way around. Can't imagine what is involved in manufacturing this stuff. These companies that do this are really, really, really awesome. All right, so now we've got it in the eye socket, and we're going to push to go click. Now it's clicked in there. Now to test this, we're going to use a screen, of course. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to use this extension that came with the eye socket. This connector down here, I call the touch connector. I'm not sure if it's got other stuff wrapped up in it or not, but I know we're needing, this is touch. So then we're going to hook up our top connector. Now, I'm not sure if I do this right, guys. If somebody out there can tell me differently, look at how ridiculous this is. I'm actually having to fold this over backwards and hook the screen up here. Like, it's sort of like creates a wishbone type shape. Okay, so there's one. Let's hook up the other one. There we go. So now we got our screen hooked up and it's hooked up on this extension. Now, let's get a power supply hooked up to this thing. I'm going to turn the power supply on. Actually, let's put it on the screen but not turn it on yet. And let's get our test lead hooked up. We want to see that it still boots, and then I'm going to try to put it back together. All right, so now we've got our iPhone X power supply test lead hooked up, and I'm going to go ahead and turn it on. We get 0 amp load. That's a relief. And we're going to press the power button, and 1, 2, 3, 80 milliamps, 120 milliamps, 300 milliamps, and this board is booting, guys. Let's go ahead and let it boot all the way up. We're going to make sure that it has working touch, and then I'm going to see if we can put it back together and still have a functioning board. There we go. We're back up and running. We do have working touch on a phone that has no passcode, and no doubt still signed into all this guy's stuff. And if I hook it up to a network, I'll probably, gosh, it's a good thing I'm not a crook, huh? 40 bucks on eBay. iPhone X board, iPhone 10 board. They actually sent it to me. It boots up and runs. Oh, sweet. So not much to see here. I guess we can go ahead and just, like, I don't know, let's check and see if Wi-Fi works. I'm sure it does. It was working before. Yeah, it enables, but we don't have any antennas, so that's no surprise. Cool beans. Go ahead and turn that off. And that's it for the very first part of this demonstration. Now, for the next part of this demonstration, I'm going to do what everybody keeps asking for, and I'm going to put the board back together. And then we're going to see if it boots. You guys have watched me take this board apart. You have watched me sort of put, I've cleaned up all the pads and added some alloy to it all in one swing. And we've verified that the board still boots, and now we're going to see if I can put it back together and then still have it boot. Now, I would not be doing a video on this if I wasn't reasonably confident that I could do this. I have been through this a couple of times now, actually a few times now, but still not nearly enough to feel like I'm proficient. And the technology, it's moving along so fast, I'm really not sure if anybody is proficient, except for these people in China. Qian Li, JC, some of these folks are just like, you guys blow my mind with some of the stuff that you create, and I am immensely grateful because it allows me to do stuff like this. iPhone 10 would be a pain in the neck to work on without something like the eye socket. So now let's talk putting this back together. To put this back together, I'm going to do it the exact same way, only this time, thankfully, I'm going to use the board heater that was donated to me by Easy Fix Cell Phone Repair, because it has these nice guide pens that are going to line all this crap up for me. So what we'll do is we're going to put the bottom half on the thingy. Oh, you know what? Those guide pens don't reach the top board though. This is still going to be by the seat of my pants. Yeah, it's still going to be really tricky. I've been lining this up just like this, just by looking at it. and looking at it all around the edges and lining up that way. So that's exactly what we're going to do now. So let's get this under the microscope. I'm not liking the way some of these has turned out over here. Gonna take a lot more flux than that, ain't it, fellas? Okay, that's looking pretty good. I'm going to go ahead and fix this grunge up here, although, you know what, that is all ground. All those grungy pads right there, that is all ground. Let's just leave that crap alone. We do have some stuff in here to worry about, so I'm just gonna go through and hit this once more. I'd really like for this to work. And I have had a reasonable amount of success with this, or you wouldn't be seeing me do this on YouTube. When I get more proficient in reballing this, if I do need to go that route, then I'll be putting those videos up too. I know everybody wants to post videos of me learning, and believe me, I am, like right now. I'm sitting here learning right now. Otherwise, I wouldn't have just bumped that with the iron. But I got to have time to myself for learning, guys, because I've got to be able to keep up with technology, and this stuff's moving along really fast. I mean, iPhone 10 came out a long time ago, and I'm just now getting to this point. And that's from having an abundance of work. And shit. A little more flux. It's from having an abundance of easy work. I've been able to turn away stuff that is maybe not as rewarding. Alright, so that looks pretty good. We had some grunge over here, but those are all ground. This is ground all the way around here. We're going to leave all that alone. Ground there. Everything here looks pretty uniform. There's a couple that may not be just perfect, but that all looks good, guys. So let's go ahead and add some flux. And we're going to put this back together. Oh, I turned the heater off just a few minutes ago, but I think I failed to mention that. It's still pretty warm though, and that's why this flux is going on the way that it is. Dun, 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 dun. Trying to use a very, very small amount of flux because we won't be able to clean this. I guess we could call this the second easiest way. The easiest way to put these two pieces back together would be to have a clean separation, nothing oxidized, and you could just use what's there. That's my favorite way to do it. I've done that a couple of times. This here is going to be the second easiest way, where you actually just kind of cheat and you don't have to reball anything. You're really just letting surface tension pull solder onto each individual pad. And then you've got, I guess you could use a stencil and do like, or manually place the balls on there. You could do that. But what I did just here, guys, that was pretty dang easy. That is not beyond the scope of an economical repair. Like if one comes in for some problem where you have to get between the two board halves to fix. This here is not too bad, and it's not that intrusive on the phone. I mean, you've seen me take it apart. The board still boots. I'm putting it back together now. I'm reasonably confident that the board is still going to boot. So let's see if we can put it back together. This is going to be really difficult to do to where you can see it and I can see it. We have our flux on the board, and now what we're trying to do is actually put this on top of that and line up all these little balls without anything misaligning, right? And he just said this was going to be easy. let's clamp our little clampers down here. Okay, get that one in there. And let's see if we can line this up. So, I mean, really, we can just look at these pins. It would make my day if those pins line up, but I really don't think they will. This is actually not going to be too bad. It really isn't perfect. And it should be perfect. So I'm going to poke around on this and try to line this up a little more. So I'm going to nudge this way. Like that. Now also I'm sitting hump on top of hump too, so I would expect it to want to fall off one way or the other. So now we're going to line up this corner. Okay. Yeah, this is what I normally go through. Dang it, I was hoping the pins on this heater would keep me from having to do this. Now one good thing too, it is sort of like putting a chip on, in a sense that it will line itself up, which means you also have a little bit of room for error. Not a lot, but you do have a little. I think somebody needs to make a jig, or maybe put slightly longer pins in this one. Okay, that is close enough. Dang near perfect. All right, so we're lined up all the way around. We'll kick the microscope aside, and let me see if I can show you this. So let's turn our heater on. And now we're going to begin raising the temperature of this from the bottom side. Now, so far through this whole entire video, you have not seen me touch this board with hot air. If I had touched this with hot air, I feel like it could change some things. I have been seeing a lot of warped PCBs that are actually raised up out here on this far end. And some of these, whenever I put them back together like this, we'll actually see it raise up out there on the end a little bit, but then it will pull itself down. Okay, we're going to continue letting this heat up. And I'm moving this around. I'm trying to give you an idea of what this looks like as it's happening. Now this heater is quite a bit slower than my other one, so I really don't know how long this is going to take. So what we're doing here is we're watching for movement. And we are waiting for this thing to heat up. And I am a little concerned. We can see that we do have that lifting going on out here at this far end right here. But I believe as this heats up and the whole thing comes up to temp more uniformly, that is going to stick right down. All right, let's keep a really close eye on this thing. I believe we should see the flux I put on here bubble when this is getting near time. I'm not sure if I'm going to leave this in real time or if I'm going to cut this down. I think a lot of people watching this channel would like to see this in real time, and it may actually be more useful in real time. I'm having trouble keeping it in focus. At such a narrow depth of field with the camera this close that I have trouble getting it to focus on more than just one specific spot. Okay, that side is really hard to get a camera on, so I'm going to stick to this side, guys. Okay, I might be imagining it, but it looks like our gap is narrowing. Oh yes, our gap is definitely narrowing. Rats, was I fooling around? Did I miss it? So as you can see, we did have a gap down here at this end, and we no longer have that gap. That board is actually it's down on there. Okay, so let's look around. Okay, that is down on there. I no longer see a gap between those boards. They're sitting nice and flat. Okay guys, so this thing is floated all the way around. I'm gonna go ahead now, I'm gonna turn the heat off. I'm gonna let this cool off, and as soon as it cools off, we're gonna come back and see if it works. This has cooled off enough now where I can take it out of the holder. So let's go ahead, pull the latches back. Now I'm still gonna kind of approach with caution here. Let's take this out of here very cautiously. I mean, I'm pretty sure that everything that was molten should absolutely be solidified, but you know, it would suck. Now, the very next thing that I'm gonna do, let's put this under the microscope and have a look at the outer perimeter and see what my balls look like, huh? Okay, so we do have this tiny bit of a gap here. And I guess, you know, you could probably get away with applying a little bit of pressure during cooling. So let's look at the rest of this board here and see what we're into for the rest of the way around. Actually looks really good as far as being slim like it was whenever it came in. We don't have hardly any balls showing other than down here where it's sort of picked up down here at the end. That's sort of a pain in the neck. How about this side of it? This side of it looks really good. And then it looks good all the way until you get down here at the end, and we did have that issue of this end here where it picked up a little bit. Now, that's not going to cause any problems. I mean, if this is all we've got to deal with, this isn't that bad, guys. And the spacing on these balls is like, this is completely doable. They're really not that hard to take apart and put back together. I think the trickiest thing is going to be out here at the very end where this board has the tendency to lift up. Although the way this is, the solder had made contact and sort of strung apart just a fuzz, which means it's most likely still going to work. Plus, all those pads out there are ground. Anyways, let's see if it works. Let's grab our iPhone X, iPhone X test screen. Let's go ahead and get our screen hooked up here to the proper plugs. Hook up our touch connector. Go. Let's hook up our display connector here. There we go. And next, we're going to hook up the DC power supply. There we go. Let's turn the power supply on. Now here's where we should really pucker up, guys. Are we going to get a load? Tell you what, I really like my new board, so let's go ahead and turn the voltage down to turn the amperage down to an amp. Let's go ahead and turn the voltage down to, let's say a volt, because I really like my new iCloud board. I don't want to smoke it. Now let's turn the power supply on. Good, we're not getting a load at a volt. I should actually use less amperage than that. Okay, we're getting a load at 2 volts. We are not. You know what, 2 volts isn't enough to kick on my iPower Pro. Let's just go straight to 4 volts. All right, so we're looking good here at 4 volts. All right, now I'm done beating around the bush. Let's see if it works. I'm going to turn hit the power button in 1, 2, 3, boot. 100 milliamps, 200 milliamps. We get an Apple logo. Yay, Apple logo. Ooh, yay, Apple logo. So here we are up and running. Let's go ahead and slide to open up. So now we've got this phone opened up and running. Now I'm just curious to see, do we still get Wi-Fi? I'm sure we do. Like, it's not that complicated. Like, to take this apart and put it back together, it can be excruciatingly intimidating, but once you get into it and actually start doing it, it's really not that complicated. Now, I have had some of these come in with like really big balls. Like, you don't need big balls here, guys. There's plenty of times in life whenever you're going to be happier with gigantic balls. This is not one of them. These things come in with gigantic balls, and when you take it apart, you can see where like solder had ran together, and this is not a big ball process. This is a tiny little ball process, and as long as you use tiny little balls, you're probably going to have success. Make sure it's lined up, heat it up, and it'll just fall right down into place, and everybody is happy. Guys, that's going to be the end of this video. I really need to move on. I got a lot of stuff going on, and this is a video that I don't get to bill a customer for. So I really thank you all for watching. If you like the video, I would greatly appreciate it if you click the thumbs up button. I can't believe how many of you click thumbs up. It's just like, wow, thank you so much. I can't tell you how grateful I am. So guys, that's it for now. I will see you next time. Have a good day. Thanks for watching. So I thought it would be, so let me show you, fuck. Am I,